the end of the day, you ain't shit. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
You know? Unless you're on the Mount Rushmore of MMA, even guys in the UFC, we all are just figuring this shit out. And for your ego to be so inflated is kind of senseless. And it's just like, learn that you ain't shit and just grow from that.
Is there no one else? Is there no one else?
We are here. We made it. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Lunar Visuals MMA here. I got a special guest here today, the one and only Lathon Lawson out of Middle Georgia. Lathon, it's good to have you back here on the pod. This time over Zoom. We found a way to make the call work. We got a little Zoom studio call set up. I'm looking forward to getting into some MMA talk with you and the state of the game right now, man. But how are you doing?
Hey, man, it's good to be back, and I'm doing good, man. Just staying busy with the gym, staying busy with MMA and coaching and stuff like that, and doing my own training, and then also just working full time and just life, man.
Yeah, the full-time struggle is real. It's real, man.
Oh yeah.
I've been living that. Plus the new city, it's crazy, but we find a way, man. I don't want to take up too much. I know we're on a slight time frame, but man, it seems like we're going through such a weird time in MMA right now, where it's in a weird state. I feel, it's in a weird state. We have already seen like a lot of the older generation, and when I say the older generation, I mean like pretty much everyone before. You got the OGs when it first started. You got your Mark Coleman's, all that group, and then you got the people that spawned from them, and then you got the group that spawned right from them after. And these people are already opening their gyms, and they're passing on the knowledge of jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, boxing, whatever you want to call it, everything in between. It seems like the blueprint of what fighting has been. It's this thing that kind of was just crazy and wild at first, and then it became a sport. And now we're at a point where, people are really taking this seriously. And then the people who were in the sport so early on, they're passing on the knowledge. We talked about this a while ago, like just passing on the knowledge. It keeps trickling down. And
Well, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
yeah, sorry. But it seems like now the generation is just getting a different chapter of fighting than the last generation had, because there wasn't really a living in it before, So what do you have to say to that?
So, you said it's kind of like a weird spot with MMA. I just feel like it's MMA, and it's always been, right? It's very unpredictable. We got so many good people coming into the sport now. Like, guys are coming from, professional football players to, guys who play basketball overseas to guys who are, lifelong martial artists they did karate up until, they switched over to kickboxing, or guys who did jiu-jitsu up until they switched over to MMA and stuff like that. So you just kind of have the different level of athlete coming into the sport. And this is the wave that everybody's been talking about. You got guys who've been training since they were 4 or 5 years old, and now they're of age. And now these are the guys we're seeing in the sport. The evolution of MMA has happened, and that's what we're witnessing. And that's why the belts are changing hands so often. That's why, we have so many different superstars. There's so many superstars in the sport right now. Mm-hmm. We have guys like, I would consider anybody who's a champion, in my opinion, is like a superstar. That's what I would say in the world of MMA. But the belt is changing hands all the time. Like the guy who just fought Kai Kara France, right? On his last card, he fought
Urseg or Pantoja.
Yeah, Urseg. Yeah, he fought for the belt right before that, and the dude was he's 9-0 in MMA. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He's a guy who's probably been training since he was a kid. So this is just what we're seeing right now, is just the different. I mean, the evolution of MMA, because you got guys who've been training martial arts and MMA since they were kids, and that's just what we're witnessing right now, dog.
Absolutely. I mean, and it seems like fighters have to be multiple things these days. You can't just fight, and you got to coach. You have to, if you're on a professional level where you're really trying to make some money, you kind of have to advertise yourself a little bit with the, do things that you wouldn't normally do. If you want to be into that superstar status, everyone wants the McGregor money, but it's like, do you know what you got to do to get that money? Is you got to do a lot of crazy and wild things. You got to have a personality. You got to dabble in a little bit of other businesses outside the UFC. It's so much more if you want to get to such a higher level. Now, every fighter is different in how they do things, but it seems like if you want to have a great success story, you have to do a little bit of everything. Am I wrong?
No, I mean, you definitely have to be more marketable. You can't just be the guy that just comes in and fights, right? I just listened to the Jackson podcast with Matt Brown, and he's a guy who's been straight and narrow his whole career. All he did was fight. Didn't turn down any fights, never talked no shit, just kind of stayed in his lane, and didn't make a whole lot of money. I mean, he made enough to provide for his family, but compared to like John Jones and Conor McGregor and Daniel Cormier, and like all these, Holly Holm, Ronda Rousey type of people, like he didn't make that type of money, but he's got probably twice the experience.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's unfortunate that, fighting just isn't enough anymore. But that's the name of the game. When you got people that are putting money into the sport and investing into you have to make yourself more marketable, because you're basically representing their product. And the UFC is a marketing machine. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. They're a marketing machine. They will use you until they can't use you anymore, and they will make you a superstar beyond your wildest dreams. But if you ain't, and if they see no return on investment, they're not going to push you. And it is what it is. Like a guy who's about to be a breakthrough right now, and he already is kinda, but he's the guy who's pushing the limit now. Is Joaquin Buckley. Mm-hmm. He's pushing the limit. He's making the outlandish videos. He's calling out guys to spar. One of his phrases is, all work is good work. You know what I'm saying? Like, all work is good work. Any sparring, any type of altercation that he runs into, he's like, that's good work. That's work for me. So I'm like, I understand where he's coming from. I don't agree with it, but I understand.
Yeah. I mean, and you're someone who's kind of on the front lines of MMA in a sense, where you kind of see the people who walk into the gym, whether it be new talent or people who are getting into MMA, whether it would be wanting to become a fighter or people who are in the amateur, skill level. And from my experience, where I've seen a little bit where these fighters that are like not really doing this for a living, it's something that they have a passion for and they would love to probably do professionally, but not sure if their head's all the way in it. There's that little in-between era when you're fighting on a regional scene where it's like, yeah, you're fighting and you're doing something, but you got another job that's probably funding this. At a certain point, you will have to choose. And sometimes I feel like, because I do the post-fight interviews at Summit, and sometimes you can tell with certain people when the passion is there and when the passion isn't there. You can tell whether, this is just something that's, extra and they're just working, making a living. And then there's the people that, they have potential and they see themselves doing something in it in the future. And my question is to you is, why do you think I don't want to say hesitancy, but obviously having a full-time job and having to provide for yourself is probably just the biggest thing. But what do you think stops most people from trying or stopping going, to the next level, whether it be pro or the next level of MMA past the regional scene?
Honestly, it's a couple of different things, right? You gotta have passion and heart, right? That's number one. Like I've done a couple seminars with some pretty high profile guys, in their discipline. And that's the number one thing that like everybody talks about is like, first of all, beyond the skill and the direction of a coach and stuff like that, you gotta have fucking heart, dog. You gotta have some passion, and you gotta be like willing to put your life on the line essentially, and do this shit all the way in. So that's like the first thing is like a lot of guys don't really have the heart for it, and I'm not saying that in a negative way because like even when I was fighting, like I didn't enjoy fighting. Like I did it because I wanted to be an MMA coach. I did it because it was fun to a certain degree, but I didn't have the passion for fighting like I do for coaching and teaching and instructing. The second thing, and this is something that, a lot of people don't think about, is location, right? Unfortunately, the Southeast is not a hotbed for MMA, in my opinion. Florida is a hotbed, South Florida in specific. But when you talk about the Southeast, and Florida's kind of like its own country. It's crazy, right? Florida's like its own thing. But when you talk about the Southeast as far as like the Carolinas, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, state, the Southeast states. When you start talking about those states, like it isn't really a hotbed for MMA. The Midwest has heavy wrestling. Oklahoma, Iowa, Missouri, stuff like that. They have heavy wrestling. The West Coast is the hotbed for MMA because of the Gracie lineage. That's where they came whenever they came from Brazil. A lot of those guys settled down in the West Coast. They settled down in California. And then you have up north where like there's a lot of Muay Thai influence up north, and then you have a lot more like boxing and stuff like that up north, like Philly and New York, the Bronx. Those are places that are known for fighting essentially. But unfortunately, in the Southeast, we don't have that luxury. We don't have the heavy
infrastructure too.
And that's just here, And I'm not saying it's so much bigger everywhere else. It is very big everywhere else, but it's not so much bigger. Like how often do cards come into Atlanta? And Atlanta is one of the most popular cities in the United States. It's the most migrated city in 2020 and 2021. The most migrated city in the United States is Atlanta, and the UFC don't even come here as often as they're in Vegas and these other states, So it just is what it is. It's location. Like you got to have the resources. You have to have the teams. You have to have the gyms. You have to have all of this influence and stuff like that. And unfortunately, Southeast just isn't it. So that's my opinion. Somebody can get on here.
Yeah. No, you hit a solid point that I was going to bring up. You always, man, you're mystic Lathon over here predicting what I'm going to talk about. So the Southeast, right? The Southeast, that was a big thing I was going to hit on. I'm not going to go too deep into it. I'm going to save it for a little bit later, but I'm just going to touch on it a little bit. Georgia MMA and just the MMA scene here, it's not super big. And I 100% agree with that. The UFC doesn't come down here a lot. And especially if you're a fighter coming out of here, you're going to have to travel other places to get fights sometimes if you're really trying to do, go to the next level. But I'm going to lead into what Malcolm Wellmaker's doing. I'm going to add on to that. I'm going to come back to that point. Put a pin in it for a second. But to go off of what we were talking about, just the passion, whether it's there, I'll talk to these fighters in the post-fight interview, and they're on the broadcast, and it's like if this is just me, but like when you get a chance, when you win, you got like a sliver of a time slot on pay-per-view. Yeah, it's not ESPN Plus, but it's pay-per-view, and you're at such a early stage, and you're on a pay-per-view. I think most people don't even realize that they're like being live streamed sometimes, and it's like, you're not just talking to me. You're not just talking to the people in the crowd. You're talking to the world, in a sense, whoever's tuned in watching that fight. So it baffles me because I try to get the best out of certain fighters. I want to evoke something that is, so strongly related to the sport and what they're doing and what's going on. And some just, maybe they're just dead. They're just dead from the fight. Because the last card I did, the main event, it was a heavyweight bout, went 3 rounds. Those heavyweights will gas after 3 hard rounds. So he was about ready to go. But that was what I had to say on that.
But some guys are just born too. Like they don't have a personality. Fighting is like, their thing, and it's like what makes them cool. Like they maybe didn't have a whole lot of friends in high school growing up, stuff like that. It's like, and I don't want to put a negative connotation around boring, but it's just like, they just don't really got much to say. And it's like, fighting is what makes them cool. I know plenty of guys who just game all day and then they just go to the gym and train. Like they don't have a life, bro. Like they're boring. Like it is what it is. It's just like they don't get on the mic and talk no crap because that's not who they are. And it's like, like you said, you got your 15 minutes of fame. Like make it happen. What you trying to say? And it's like they don't got nothing to say. And it's just like it's just the personality, man.
That's funny. Yeah, but like when it's an individual sport, so you do have more lights on you, and you have more of screen time on specifically you. It's not just like a team sport. I mean, you obviously got your coaches and everything, but like I think people that want to be successful shouldn't forget that it's you're in the spotlight. You have this sliver of time to showcase what you can do and who you are. Like people. There are so many great fighters out there, so many great ones that just do not know how to promote themselves or just do a little bit of like face to face with social media, kind of put a face to the name, just do a little bit. Cause fighting's growing, the sport is blowing up, and gyms are opening up everywhere, but like people want to see who you are. Why do you want someone to buy your pay-per-view or watching your fight? Give them a reason to, not other than just to go watch your fights. Like you got to give them something more than just the bare minimum. That's what I've really been trying to get at, because I love the sport. I'm going to watch this stuff, but I'm trying to get people the average Joe who's going to decide to watch MMA. It's like, how can I get this person? What would get this person interested? I think about it from that perspective. How do you get people, how do you get butts in the seats, or how do you get people to watch something? Like fighting's already great. You're getting two guys punching each other in an octagon. It's great. But when there's bringing up, who is it? Who's fighting? Oh, amateur. No, give it a shot. I'm telling you, these amateur cards are the new generation. It's college foot. It's the way. And this is a weird comparison, but college. There's a college NFL. There's that, and then there's the amateur and semi-pro, and then there's the UFC one, whatever. But there's that level, right? Like college football is a freaking huge phenomenon.
Powerhouse.
Yeah, and MMA's college is amateurs and semi-pros. I mean, would you disagree or?
No, I mean, I'm not a big football guy, but I see what you're saying. Like the amateurs are essentially the gateway to the pros, and the amateurs have to have a selling, like they have to gather the attention so that the next level can already have attention. If you create a very distinct following as an amateur, which I know guys have created a very solid following as an amateur, and then they go on to become pro, people continue to watch you and support your journey, and they also feel like they're a part of it to some degree. Yeah, I've been watching that boy since he was, his first fight, just like football. Yeah, I've been watching that boy since he was, playing pee-wee football. It's the same thing, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's the same journey, essentially. It's just the gateway to the pros are going to be the amateurs.
Right.
Because there's so few pros. As many fights as we see, there's a small percentage of human beings in the United States or in the world in general that are professional fighters. And you may come across one every day. You may not even know it. You may never come across one. You may not ever know anybody who fights professional MMA, You may like, oh yeah, my sister's boyfriend's brother's an MMA fighter. That's, you hear that. So it's like, yeah, but like, I don't know many NFL players. I don't think I know any personally. Like, I don't know any NFL players, That's even a smaller window because you have teams, you have slots, positions, stuff like that. Like, it's so small,
Yeah, absolutely, man. And to go off of what I was talking about earlier with Malcolm Wellmaker, and we were talking about Georgia MMA and the Southeast in general, not a big hot spot for MMA. Well, Malcolm Wellmaker, 7-0 as a bantamweight, gets a fight lined up on Dana White's Contender Series, and he'll be representing Georgia MMA August 27th. Very interested in this individual. He's got, the local Augusta News covering him. He's got a lot of build up to what he can do for Georgia MMA and for himself and his career. if he can put on a show,
Hold on. We got to pay homage to my homeboy now. Last night, my boy Torres Finney.
Yes.
We got to pay homage to Torres first. Torres fought last night and won the Dana White Contender Series. Unfortunately, he didn't get the contract. But as far as representing Georgia, he's a Georgia native, born in Macon, Georgia, Jones County, and he is a stud athlete, 2-time state champion for Jones County High School. Stud athlete, went on the Contender Series. Only been fighting for 3 years. We gotta pay homage to one of the local guys too. Not to take away from Malcolm, because that's my other boy. I fuck with Malcolm, and he's my boy, man. He's doing great things. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
I had to set you off a little bit, and I was like, hold on, we get a little ahead of ourselves first.
He's made some headlines. Torres Finney, he's already in the headlines. You know, there's that history there. There's history him on the Dana White's Contender Series. Didn't get the contract, but I'm seeing it. I'm seeing his name, and just being associated with it and being there and showing up, it's good for business as far as Georgia MMA and just Georgia in general. We need more Georgia guys in there. But to go off of what I was saying with Wellmaker, right? Georgia MMA scene needs its talent to come feed up into the UFC. You know, it doesn't just start with Malcolm Wellmaker. It doesn't just start with Torres Finney and Trayshawn Gore. You know, it needs to be a lot more than that, you know, and not the same division either. You know, you want your heavyweights, you want every division you can get in there from Georgia, because you get enough of them, one of them's going to pop off real hard, and then that guy's going to be a stud, and then that stud's going to headline a fight night. Then they're going to have a fight night in Atlanta, Georgia, possibly, if it's a big enough sell. And then next thing you know, they're doing pay-per-views in Atlanta. This is where I was trying to go with this, right? Malcolm Wellmaker, he's got the flashy, the great 7-0 record, a lot of finishes, undefeated as a pro, going into Dana White's Contender Series in the bantamweight division, which is a hot division right now. A hot division. I can't remember the name of the guy they've got him matched up against, but I know it's not going to be, you know, some can. These guys are always coming in and they're matching them with killers. So if he can make a statement next August 27th, it could be a good thing for Georgia MMA, because you got Trayshawn, Torres, Malcolm. I mean, if this Georgia MMA trend stays positive, we could be looking at something soon. I'm telling you, we just need these guys in there. But I feel the possibilities, you know, for Malcolm Wellmaker and Georgia MMA from here, they could be endless if we keep getting these guys in there. It's a good way for them to get in.
We got some good eyes and some good guys going through to the UFC from the Georgia scene in general. You know, like you said, Trayshawn Gore, him and Cody Durden train at ATT Lima. Cody Durden has been in the UFC now for it's been a couple years now. It like went by in a snap of a finger. You know, so Cody Durden is at the top. You know, that's one of the best promotions. Trayshawn's up there. Torres Finney's there. We got some guys who've been through there, like, you know, their coach, Diego Lima, you know, Cole Miller. You know, we got some OGs that's been up through there too and stuff, like Anthony Rumble Johnson, a guy who's also from this area that I'm in, you know, RIP. But yeah, man, we've had some studs go up through the UFC, but now it seems like the floodgates are opening, and like you said, it's like a Malcolm Wellmaker who has the whole package. Like, he can talk well. He's got the look, right? He's tatted up. He's got, you know, he's got long braids. He's got heavy hands. He's got flashy knockouts. Like, a guy like him can go and open the floodgates. That'll open the gates for his whole team. Guys on his team like Joel Baglier and Quincy Evans, who's one of my favorite fighters. One of his teammates is one of my favorite fighters, dude. That dude is a freaking stud, and I'm gonna talk about him all the time because he's a beast, man. He's a workhorse, but he's still an amateur, and he's a freaking monster.
Yeah, there's so much, and we need that. I know there's talent here, and it's just putting the pieces together and putting enough of them in the right spot, right time. But to go back to the topic of the UFC, I feel you were already discussing this earlier, and I'm kind of going to piggyback off of that. But do you feel like, in a sense, not entirely, I'm not saying that the UFC is like at the reached the highest it could ever reach. But do you think it has peaked in a sense of the sport's biggest star in the past 10 years, Conor McGregor, he's kind of phasing out. He's phasing out towards the end of his career now. So that let's just say, Conor McGregor, he's an icon, he's a legend, whatever you want to call him. He's one of the biggest things that's happened to MMA. And right now, until someone else replaces him as that guy who did all the things he did, he will be the biggest star in MMA ever until someone comes to replace him, like numbers wise. And, everyone knows him. Everyone. Just think about that type of impact, right? So with him phasing out the end of his career, you got every sport's got their icons like a McGregor. The NFL's got their Brady. Boxing's got their Mayweathers and their Ali's and their, basketball's got their LeBron James, Kobe, MJ. There's all these different eras, right? So I don't think that the UFC financially or anything like that has peaked. I'm just saying in a sense of the era we are in, because it seems like there's a little bit of a passing of the torch. Also, to piggyback off of the Conor thing, the greatest MMA fighter to have ever lived, according to numbers and fighting in the best promotion, Jon Jones, he's at the end of his career, and he's close to retirement. So we've got these two guys, Jon Jones and Conor McGregor, who are really big aspects of MMA. They represent MMA in a lot of different ways, but they're almost on their way out. I mean, John's 37, Conor's 36 or 37. So these guys, their time in the sport is limited. So we're entering into a new age, I feel. And, there's a lot of passing of the belts. Adesanya, Volk, Usman, a lot of these guys just phasing out. And it's weird. It's a weird spot to be in, but it seems like a large chapter of the UFC is over, and the infrastructure is there now with ESPN. It's all focused on scooping up the best talent. So, what do you think is next? What do you think you see in the future as far as the talent? Who do you think is going to be those next people that push the sport forward? Because McGregor, Jones, these guys have done it. They pushed it to the limit.
So I'm going to answer your question, and then I'm going to ask you a question. To answer your question, there's always going to be fighters to fill the slot. Like, I heard somewhere that, Sean O'Malley is a big star and the UFC pushes him, but he doesn't sell very well. Actually, he doesn't sell a lot of pay-per-views and stuff like that because a lot of his fans illegally stream the UFC event.
Yeah.
Because it's with the young, broke college people. They can't afford to pay for the fucking UFC events, unfortunately. Like the diehard fans, the old school guys don't support all the pink hair and the antics and the smoke. A lot of those guys really don't support the antics that Sean O'Malley does, which I'm like, dude, he's living his life, he's being himself. But like, you have the Sean O'Malleys, we got the Sean O'Malleys, we got the guys like Cheeto Vera. 55, Islam is a superstar. He's a superstar, hands down. He's a superstar. Then you got Charlie Allen, man. He's a superstar also. He's a Brazilian
Legend.
He's wearing that flag on his back like he's a superstar, bro, in Brazil, and he's a superstar here in America too. So you got him. Then you got at 70, the belt changes hands a little bit, but it changes hands quite a bit now the last couple of years. But you still got guys who are freaking superstars. But Leon Edwards became a superstar when he kicked Usman in the head and knocked him out. Simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he probably won't be remembered, for a long time, unfortunately, in the history books. But like his reign was very short, and he can still make his way back up there. But he was a superstar when he kicked him in the head, man. Like he's one of those guys who ain't very old, And then Bilal ain't really a superstar because he doesn't really have that knockout style. But like somebody's gonna come along and replace him. You got guys that are coming up, like I said, like the young guys like Joaquin Buckley, who are hungry, man. They're fighting. They're clawing for the top spot. They're clawing for it, bro. Sean Brady, freaking at 185, man. You got Dricus right now. You got Sean Strickland, who's a superstar. It's gonna foster in. It's just the Sibley line is just gonna move. Look, this is gonna be it. and then this is just gonna come.
So to answer your question, yes, MMA in a weird spot. You slightly disagree, but don't understand everything. As I was saying, like I said, MMA, it's not the same as it was 10, 15 years ago. We're at a time where it's ESPN Plus. It's on ESPN Plus. It's so accessible. I mean, not just to watch on TV, but to go out and do. To go out and do, you can go to a gym and become a fighter. It's so much easier than I feel like it used to be, so much more accepted, and you can make, a small career out of it. Whereas before you couldn't really do that, and now it's getting so normalized. It's really setting in, I think. And it's weird to see how the perception of it has changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you mean. So you're saying it's weird in a good way.
Yeah. It just, even though fighting is this crazy thing, right? We all see it as the sport now that it is. But back before, it was just like so wild and different. And now it's just like, it's such a common thing. And I think it's just going to slowly start, becoming completely normal to everybody, even though there's still a large population that doesn't watch it. It's just, I don't know. I see MMA going in a weird direction. And with it being UFC, the UFC is a huge part of MMA. You know what I mean? And when you see they're re-signing these deals with ESPN Plus, I just think, 5-10 years, what's going to come of things that happen in the sport. I just think of all types of different things, and it just seems like it's in a weird place where it's not going anywhere. It's definitely not going anywhere. It's going to be there. UFC is not going anywhere. I don't know what to think.
It's like MMA is in a weird spot in a good way, right? I agree with that. The other thing that I feel like people don't realize is like MMA is very circular. So things go out of style and then they come back around, just like fashion, right? They say fashion or history always repeats itself, right? And that's what I feel like MMA does. I feel like MMA kind of revolves and evolves. So like now when people started out training in single disciplines, right? You had jiu-jitsu versus Muay Thai kickboxing back in the first UFC. Then you had like the wrestlers come in and be like, oh, we're going to learn how to strike, and then we're going to learn how to ground and pound. We're going to beat everybody up, right? And that worked for a while, along with the catch wrestlers that knew submissions and stuff like that. And that worked for a while. And then you had guys who was like, oh, we're just going to train everything. We're going to just train everything like a whole. Everything's going to be one discipline. We're going to do it all. We're just going to fight, and that's what they were doing. They were just fighting. There was no specialist in a sense, right?
Right.
And then it came back around to where it was like Anderson Silva, who was more of a striking specialist. GSP was known to be the karate guy, but he learned how to wrestle later on in his career and stuff like that, right? So like the GSP, like the GSP era where he was like taking everybody down and stuff like that, right? And then we had, like the guys who were heavy on the wrestling, right? And you had the Khabib Nurmagomedovs, stuff like that come about, even though Khabib didn't fight a whole lot in the UFC. He was in the UFC for a long time. People forget. Khabib was in the UFC for a long time. But now it's coming back full circle where we're getting away from the single disciplines, because that's what it started out as, and guys were specialists. We're getting away from that again, and we're getting back into where guys are training everything as one unit. MMA is his own discipline. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you don't go in there, today we're going to work on boxing, guys. Oh, today we're going to do our kickboxing. Oh, today we're going to do ground and pound. Or today we're going to do, no. You're going in there and you're doing everything. You're doing all things every day. We're doing MMA today. And that's like what it is right now. People are just going back in there and they're just going and learning how to fight again. Like they're just fighting and specializing in like MMA as a whole. So it just became, it's circular. It just comes back around. Something goes out of style, comes back around. Something goes out of style, comes back around. And that's where we're at right now with MMA. Like, you look at the Sean Strickland. What does his camp do? They spar every day, right? Sean Strickland isn't a boxer. He has that hybrid Philly shell, but he's not a boxer. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. You don't use it. He can grapple, but he don't wrestle. But he's just doing everything. He's fighting every day. He's just fighting, And that's what the best guys in the world are doing. They're just doing everything every day. So that's where we are with MMA. It's just coming back full circle, and we're seeing a repetition of the past. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
a new revival of interesting and new talent. You know, I mean, Alex Bahera being a little out of that. He came over from kickboxing, but you know, he's kind of like a new guy on the MMA scene. He doesn't have that many MMA fights, and he's already been a multiple time champion. Yeah,
he's fucking nobody. I keep saying, I was like, he's living life on easy mode. Like, he's playing this game of life on easy mode, and nobody can stop him.
I agree. It seems like I watched this fight with Yuri, the second fight with Yuri, excuse me, at 304, 305, whatever it was, and I remember thinking, after one or two times,
that was 300, right?
No, he fought him. He fought him at he fought him before 300, and then he fought Jamal on 300. Remember?
Oh, okay.
So he fought him before. He fought him before, I think, at MSG. He fought him at MSG, and then he fought Jamal. That was easy. Yeah. And then he fought Yuri. That was easy. And then he did the rematch with Yuri, and it's like he made it so easy again. Like, I watched it with Jamal and Yuri twice, and I was just like, it's so easy to him. Like, it's like I wasn't even surprised. I wasn't even yelling out of my seat. I was like, that's what happens when you try to stand with him. Like, and then you just see the new matchup with Roundtree. You got Khalil Roundtree in a recent interview. Don't get me wrong. Roundtree's striking, his Muay Thai, phenomenal. But, dude, are you going to really stand and bang with this guy? Like, you're going to go into the fire? Dana loves it. I'm sure the matchmakers love it. But, dude, just take a look at what other people have tried to do. You don't want to think, you don't want to like even try to take a different approach just a little bit, maybe wrestle for a round, you know? I don't get why people are so, I don't know, hesitant to wrestle with him. Like, he doesn't have the
It's ego, man. It's the ego. They want to prove that their shit works. They want to prove that their product is the best. My product, what I do is the best. And that's what Khalil's trying to prove. My product is the best. I can bang with anybody in the world. And it's like, bro, this man is different.
He's got one of the craziest touches of death we've seen in a while. You know, and he's not even a heavyweight. And there's also the talk. You know, there's a lot of, you know what's crazy in MMA right now? It's a big discussion, a huge discussion. And it's a kind of like a little love square. I don't want to call it a love square, but it's a square of these four fighters. You got Stipe, John, Aspinall, and Pereira. And John and Stipe, they're supposed to fight in November, but Tom's been the interim champion for God knows how long and has already defended an interim belt, which has never been done before. Defended an interim belt, which does not count for anything in terms of real numbers and stats. It's just a nice little participation belt in a lot of people's eyes. But John Jones, greatest to ever do it. No one can, most people won't disagree. But do you think him retiring after Stipe, he's good? You think in your eyes?
Dude, I've had this argument with so many people.
Well, let's not get into too much because I have one more thing I want to say after that. But like, I'm curious as to what you think. Do you think he's good after Stipe? Like, he doesn't need Aspinall or Pereira.
He can sail off into the sunset. He don't gotta prove shit. He's John fucking Jones, and people better put some respect on his name. I hate the dude as a person. What he does in his personal life is absolutely crazy, right? He's a nightmare. He's a nightmare. He's a night terror. It's awful. But what he does in that cage is beautiful, and it's fucking art, and you cannot deny it. And all these people talking about him being afraid of Tom Aspinall. Let's be serious, guys. Come on. He's done more in this sport than Tom Aspinall will probably ever do. Tom Aspinall is a great fighter. I loved his style, and I'm starting to really like him as a fighter now. But he got a lot to prove. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. John Jones can sail off to the sunset after Stipe. I don't give a shit.
I mean, I agree 100%. I do. But now there's also the fact, if he beats Stipe, right? Let's say he beats Stipe. it's really hard to decide, and I'm still torn. But like, let's say he beats Stipe and he's like, "Oh, I'm fine. I could go for another fight." Well, you don't want Pereira. He's in such a great spot right now, constantly defending that light heavyweight belt. And he came up from middleweight. He's already got that belt at middleweight, so he doesn't really have a real reason to go back because he's already gotten it. The only reason for him to move up division is to go to heavyweight because he would get 3 belts, which no other fighter has ever done. That's a big incentive for him to go and fight Jon Jones, right? And then there's Tom Aspinall, who's on a tear in the UFC, like practically, I think all finishes in his fight. So he's electrifying in and of itself. When he's the next title shot for Jon if he wins. So, I mean, you can't deny him. I mean, defended interim title. He's defended the interim title. Regardless of what happens, he's more than likely going to get a shot at the belt, whether it be vacant or not. But you got to think of the fight that would be of Alex and Jones. Because, I mean, to put 3 belts on the line, it's his potentially third belt. He's got the one touch of death. Who cares about, yes, Jon Jones has got a way more balanced fighter, but Alex Pereira he's got that puncher's chance at a high level. Even though I'm not saying he would win, I'm saying he's got a puncher's chance against Jon Jones. I think he does. I mean, it's not a prime Jon Jones. It's a 37-year-old Jon Jones. So this is the best fight.
Alex isn't a spring chicken. Alex isn't a spring chicken either. He's like 35.
He's 36. He's 36.
Yeah, he's up there too. So it'd be very entertaining to watch. Yeah, me personally, I want to see Jon Jones fight Stipe and either sail off into the sunset, or I want to see him fight Stipe, hope he wins, and then defends against Alex, and then sails off into the sunset. And if he feels like it, fight Tom Aspinall. But I personally want to see Alex Pereira.
Yeah, there's more at stake. More at stake there. 3 belts.
I want to see him get 3 belts.
Because when are you ever going to get a chance for a fighter to be able to possibly get 3 belts? You're not going to get that opportunity ever again. I think the matchmakers can't deny that. And I think they're struggling with it because he's in such a great spot right now. He's about to fight Roundtree. And then he's tweeting after Dricus wins, "I'm going back down to 185. Bro, shut up. You're not. Dude, you're not cutting that weight again. Dude, I'm not saying he couldn't, but dude, come on. What's more important? A 185 belt you've already gotten or a heavyweight belt against one of the greatest of all time? Come on. Come on now.
I agree.
What are we talking about right now? What is more important?
I agree with you.
You've already done that. It doesn't mean anything as much as it does a heavyweight belt against the greatest of all time. You could move yourself up into the top, possibly the top 3. No, not top 3, but top 10. I mean, he might already be in top 10 MMA of all time, but
yeah, he's a double champ.
But he'll move himself up so much more if he fought Jon Jones for a heavyweight belt, just to say that he did it, even if he didn't win. So for him to say to go back to middleweight, dude, you already beat Izzy, one of the greatest middleweights. Dricus is still early on. Maybe if you feel like it later on, you can do that. But I think it's better for him to fight Jones if he gets the opportunity. And Jones has even tweeted about it. He's even like, he acknowledges the fact that the heavyweight belt on the line for him is like so much. First person to ever possibly get 3 belts. He's like, I might entertain it. He likes to do a little Twitter teasing, but that's such a crazy part in the heavyweight division right now. It's weird because it gets holed up in the weirdest ways, whether it be Francis, and then going off to the vacant with Jones, and then before that, it's been in such a weird spot. But when you got the greatest of all time in the division now, it's just the stakes are so much higher. There's so much more surrounding it, but it's really only focused on like the top few in that division because a lot of them are just heavy hitters that are contenders and gatekeepers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
I had another thought. So out of the recently most crowned champs, this is a question I've got for you. Out of the most recently crowned champs, we're going to include Dricus in this, but hear me out. Out of the most recently crowned champs, which one do you believe to be the most successful in defending their title? And that's Bilal, Ilya, and Dricus.
Okay, so Ilya is scheduled to fight Max Holloway. Bilal doesn't have a fight, but they're barking up the Usman tree. And then Dricus doesn't have a scheduled bout either, but you can see Sean. I can see Sean coming back and fighting. If you want to play it based on their next fight, potential next fight, I'd say Dricus, DDP. He's got the best shot at retaining his belt. You know, if you're gonna play it like that. If you talk about overall reign of who's gonna reign the longest, like who I feel like is the better of those three, recently crowned champion, it's Ilya Topuria, but he's got Max Holloway standing in front of him, bro. And that is, come on. I mean,
he's hard to hit sometimes.
Who, Max?
Yeah.
Yeah, Max gets hit a lot too, but he is hard to find, but he gets hit. You know, like everybody's hit him. Brian Ortega hit him. Dustin Poirier obviously beat the dog shit out of him. Justin barely hit him, but Justin caught him.
He didn't hit him enough, though. He didn't hit him enough. He didn't hit him hard enough when he needed to.
But the Ortega one was the one that really surprised me because Ortega's not this superb striker, you know, allegedly, but he rocked Max Holloway's world.
Mm-hmm.
And Ilya is that boy can box.
He can.
That boy can box.
He's one of the very, very few fighters I've seen live. I've been to one UFC event. As I was saying, I've only been to one UFC event, and two of the fighters that were on the undercard were Ilya Topuria and Dricus du Plessis. And what I do remember about Ilya and seeing him live, I mean, being in the nosebleeds, you see into the top of the octagon. You can still see how fast they move, though. And when I saw Ilya, he glides. He glides with his footwork, and when he throws a hook, it's something that I couldn't quite understand. I'm like, he's so quick. He's got that McGregor twitch, that 2014, 2015 McGregor twitch to him. He's a little short, but he can throw hard, and when he lands, it doesn't end well for the other guy usually. But I think with Bilal, though, to go off of him, I think they're going to match him up with Shavkat. I think Shavkat's next. I think that it's only right. 18 fights, like 9 finishes by KO. All of his fights have been finishes, sub or KO. It's like split half and half, basically. And I'm like, this guy, he deserves it. I mean, no, he's not the biggest talker. He can't really speak English. He's from Kazakhstan, but I think that's one of the most talented guys I've ever seen. Shavkat. And I think he's a sleeping giant. He's the sleeping giant that everyone's forgetting about.
Yeah.
I think he gives Bilal real trouble. And I think he's next.
Yeah.
And I could easily see him taking it from Bilal, but that's what I think about Bilal. I mean, if they match him up with Shavkat, I don't know who they're going to match him up with, but I kind of agree with you about Dricus, you know, just off of his most recent performance with Izzy, you know, first fighter to ever submit Israel ever. That's an insane stat to have. And the last 3 people he's beaten are former champions. That's also an insane stat. That's a similar stat to Pereira too. Him and Pereira are kind of similar, beating former champions who are high level guys and still really good. Dricus is someone to be feared in that division right now. He's such a weird style too. Not the most normal. You know, you don't know what he's going to come at you with, but that's a weird one. But I'll give the rest of this time for you, man. If you want to get anything off your chest, whether it be MMA, what you do, if you want to just speak to the world, you know, let it out, man.
Oh man, I forgot about this part of your podcast. Let me think, man. I want to try to think of something that's been sitting on my mind pretty heavy. I got you. In the world of MMA, right? Men have this like ego and this like machismo about themselves, right? Because it's a fighting sport. You have to have somewhat of an ego. But in the world of MMA, guys develop this ego. And the ultimate thing that you should be trying to do every day is learn to kill your ego. Boxing and MMA are so different because MMA fighters don't protect their record like boxers do. You know, like the losses are worn more frequently than boxers do. But I wish that MMA fighters didn't get so caught up in like, you know, what this guy is doing or what that guy is doing versus what they're doing. You know, everybody's worrying about the guy next to them. Everybody's worrying about what this guy's getting paid. Everybody's ego is like, oh man, I should be a bigger star. At the end of the day, you ain't shit. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
You know? Unless you're on the Mount Rushmore of MMA, even guys in the UFC, we all are just figuring this shit out. And for your ego to be so inflated is kind of senseless. And it's just like, learn that you ain't shit and just grow from that. That's it.
Wise words of wisdom from the man himself, Lathon Lawson. Lathon, it's been an honor. Solid stuff, man.
All right.
Hey, thank you for the interview. We'll do this again, I'm sure, at some point. But yeah, man, thank you for your time.
Have me on anytime.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime, bro. Have me on anytime, bro. I'm ready.
Heck yeah, man. All right, man. Best of luck to you. I'll see you sometime soon, my friend.